Start Your Dungeons is now sponsored by Level Up Games, the largest and best board game, role playing, miniature games, collectible card game, hobby, and nerd store in Georgia. With a wide variety of events and product lines, Level Up Games is sure to have the product for every gamer you know. With 3 convenient locations in Duluth, Johns Creek, and Athens, there's bound to be a store near you. Plus, they ship anywhere in the U.S. from their online shop at levelupgamesatl.com. Thanks for sponsoring the channel, Level Up Games, and check out their event calendar and online store at the link in the description.
Hello everyone, welcome to Start Your Dungeons. I'm Adam.
I'm Bryce.
And today, we've got it, y'all. Courtesy of Level Up Games, we got the new Age of Sigmar Skaventide box.
Yep, the new 4th edition launch box. We want to give a shout out to, again, Level Up Games as our sponsor, giving us an early opportunity to pick up a demo copy of theirs and be able to use it to kind of showcase to y'all. I mean, this is a huge deal. We do miniature reviews every now and then. We were started with Shatterpoint as like our big one to show off to you guys when it came out, and now Games Workshop is releasing the next huge version of its fantasy miniature game, and we're excited to talk about it.
So let's talk about everything that comes in this box.
I'm going to say this now. You got a lot of plastic. Shout out to my thumbs that got cut up while I was building this. I built all this in like a day, so we'll say that. There's a lot of plastic in here, but you got some really cool stuff. Talk about the models. You get 2 forces in this. You get a Stormcast Eternal side of the Ruination Chamber and a Skaven side, which is kind of a mix of units from their different ones. A lot of Clan Scryer, if you know what that is, which is kind of like the techie sort of like people. The Stormcast, you get a bunch of new models. You get the new 1, 2, 3, 4 different new leaders that they can pick. 2 new sets of Liberators, another new unit, and a unit of Prosecutors. I don't remember all their names. I'm just going to be honest with you. There's so much new stuff in here. Just variety of options. You get 3 new heroes options. Well, 2 new hero options and a new sculpt of the Gracier for the Skaven.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, the new Gracier sculpt for Skaven, shout out to Games Workshop. That model is amazing. The old one was great. Yeah. This one's awesome. 3 new Rat Ogres. My favorite model out of the entire set. 2 20-man units of Clan Rats, 3 new Warpfire Giselles, and then the new giant machine gun cannon thing. I don't remember what it's called. It's a Gatling gun machine gun. Again, sorry for not remembering names. They're all funky. They're really cool. That is just the miniatures. You also get 2 big terrain pieces and then 2 small ones, one here and one here. You get the board that you get, which is, we'll talk about in a sec. These, which I love, which are the measuring sticks that have rats on them for every inch, which I think is kind of hilarious, and they like go together. It's a 6 and a 3-inch one. The board, which is for Spearhead, which we'll talk about in a little bit. It is double-sided with the objectives. You get the thing that you need to build everything on, the instruction thing. These are all push-fit as a heads-up. You don't need glue for these. The core rule book. Sorry, I'm running out of breath. There's just so much stuff. The Spearhead book, which again we'll talk about, the Fire and Jade book. You get all of the General's Handbook 2025 match play mission cards that you need for match play. And you get both twist decks and the battle tactic cards you need for playing Spearhead. Holy cow.
Yeah. It's a lot of stuff. I will say that if you don't want to go all in on this big box, the Spearhead Fire and Jade box will be available separately later.
Also the core rules.
Yeah, and it'll have the book, it'll have the cards, it'll have the terrain pieces, and the board.
Right.
So let's do like a quick, little notes on the assembly. So you said they're push fit.
Right.
What's the good and the bad of assembly for these guys?
Good and the bad. A lot of the Skaven units were pretty easy to put together. I was genuinely impressed to put them together. The Rat Ogres, I think, really worked well together, how they kind of snapped and fit together. Stormcast, you gotta stop having so many spiky bits. My poor thumbs. Like trying to push this stuff in. I mean, it is better. I mean, we'll I was talking to somebody about this today. I can't remember when they started doing push fit outside of, I believe it was, I know second edition AOS had it in the they're not starter boxes, but like the edition box, the launch box.
The Soul Wars.
Yeah, Soul Wars had it.
Yeah.
40K has done it since I believe 8th edition with Dark Imperium. So like they have gotten a lot better. I think a lot of this stuff wasn't bad. I will say this. This is push fit terrain, which I don't know if I've ever built with GW. They interlock together, and they have basically like 3 prongs and then 2 prongs, and they're supposed to fit together and clamp and hold. I think you need to go back to the drawing board, GW. Like, I'm sorry, it does not really work very well. I almost broke it trying to jam it in there. So, other than that, I think these really were pretty ingenious of how they did it. There were some, like, really, and this is just something they do, where they'll make you put multiple pieces together and put one long peg all the way through. Yeah. And sometimes those are a little bit finicky every now and then, but I was genuinely impressed. I mean, these clan rats they're mostly 2 pieces. Most of the Liberators are like 3 or 4 pieces. They're not a whole lot to put together. The heroes felt really easy to put together. Not a lot of gaps.
Good.
I did struggle with some of them at first, and then found that if I just moved the model a little bit, it would snap perfectly into place. It was like, okay, now it perfectly fits.
I always look for the shoulders on the Stormcast, because that's on the pauldrons. That's where they.
Yeah.
Like, why do they keep doing that?
The pauldrons now, in a lot of them, instead of them going in, they go on top of.
Okay,
so they snap down, kind of. They did a lot of that with the prosecutors and their archery, or like spears. And I really like that change. Shields are a lot easier now. Shields are all a peg, a small peg, and they fit perfectly in the arm. I'm genuinely impressed. Again, we play a crud ton of Underworlds on this channel, and I know how good their push fit can be with that. I think for a starter box, like, this is a lot of decent, good push fit. My only complaint is, again, some of the Skaven, I was like, I'm going to stab my fingers trying to push together. And I have big thumbs. GW, look out for the big thumb guys. Like, because, man, I keep trying to push these little models together, and my little fingers are going to break them. Like, I got 2 big thumbs, man. I don't know what it is about me.
I got skinny fingers.
Yeah. You got it easy.
I'll have to build your Skaven for you. So, like, your regular tools, like your hobby knife,
snips.
Any kind of snips, anything like that.
Yep. No glue, though. That was a big thing, and I like that.
What do you think about the cards in the Fire and Jade set? Are they easy to follow?
Nice cards. I do think that, like, a lot of this stuff is pretty easy to follow once you kind of understand the game. Like,
the color coding.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are colorblind, they also have symbols, so that you don't have to worry about getting lost on the cards, because you just look at the symbols. Yep. So that was smart.
Yeah, I do like the way they've kind of changed everything in terms of abilities and stuff. We'll talk about what we like about core rules and stuff later, but that was something I think that was a huge improvement to follow. I don't feel like they were hard. We played a game of Spearhead right before we did this, and we'll talk a little about that in a little bit, but I liked a lot of what the cards had. I felt like they've simplified the game, but don't take that as a bad thing. It's simplified, cleaner, and better.
It's simplified in a way that you don't have to keep looking things up in the rule book.
Right.
It's on the card.
Absolutely.
So, in the previous edition, we were looking through the book. We were looking through the rule book, trying to find stuff that, maybe it wasn't really in an intuitive location.
Right.
We didn't have any of that. I think we looked up a couple of things, but it was just making sure that the rule said what we thought it said.
And we are, people coming from 3rd going into 4th.
Yep.
I'm sitting here making sure I don't remember old rules, because, I don't want to ruin it for us for that. So we were double checking everything. Yeah, I do find it was a lot easier than I thought it was to just pick it up and go. Again, we've already played 3rd, but, the game is in a fresh new state. It's like a complete almost revamp. So
in terms of how easy is it to get into the game, if you're tackling 4th edition, how easy is it to find the information that you need, either whether it's in the core rule book, in the cards,
Yeah, I will say I like the way that they've kind of started to do this thing where their rules are all done by the actual turn order. They do a really good job of following. They're like, go to 18.1 for combat things. And, I like that. I think it's a smart idea. The Fire and Jade book is really nice because it has all the core rules in the back as well. So you actually don't need to bring your core rule book with you. Shout out to that. That's genius. So thank you for doing that, GW. I'm tired of carrying 8 books just to play one game. I do like the core rules. I will say I don't like that the appendix is not the final thing in the back of the book. So it's hard. I have to shuffle a couple of pages to find it every time. That's a little bit irritating, but I don't know. I have always said that Games Workshop's one of their biggest problems has always been core rule books and trying to find information in them.
Yeah.
This one feels a lot better. And I think their quick starts they posted online were really, really good too.
I wanna make a mention of, when we talk about finding the information that you need. There was a question that I had when we were first doing when we were first playing, and it was about scoring the objectives on the board. And some of the cards will say, if you score this particular objective, and I just asked, well, does it have the picture of the thing on the card? And it does. So there was no question about which objective was which.
Right.
So thank you. As somebody who's not going to remember those words, I'm thinking in pictures.
I don't remember what half of the objectives are called.
Much. What about the time it takes to play the box?
Now, so here's the thing. This is a weird box. And I think the reason it's weird is a couple of things. Unlike old editions, there's no War Scroll cards in this box. You don't get War Scroll cards like you used to do for the full game. What you get is you get stuff to basically play Spearhead.
Yep. Because that's the new format that they're pushing.
Right, and that's literally a start collecting box, aka a Spearhead box, and play.
Used to be called Vanguard also.
Kind of what they did with Combat Patrol for 40k. What makes that interesting about this is, though, these are way more than that, right? These are way more models than you will ever need to play Spearhead, right? I only need 2 10-man units of Clan Rats. I get the Ogres. I get my heroes. I don't get the Gatling gun. I don't get the Giseli. I don't get all my options, right? So unlike other games where they used to teach you with all the models in the box, this doesn't care so much about all that. Mm-hmm. Also, there's no rules for all the models in the box. If they're not in the Spearhead rules, which actually the rules are different in Spearhead for your models than they are in the real game, it's a weird choice for me.
But you've got the option of getting them online now.
Correct. All free online.
For now.
Yes. And eventually I assume they're going to put an app out like they do. They've already said they're going to put an app out. It's going to have at least all the Spearhead options for you and all that. And what's nice is the Spearhead book has every single currently released Spearhead in it. That's really great. But it was just interesting to me that they have never done a starter box, at least until 40K's new one as well, that was focused on the smaller version of the game.
Right.
Not playing the full game with less models.
Right.
Very interesting take. I like it, personally. But I do think it's weird that if you wanted to play this force versus this force fully, you wouldn't be able to do that without going online and getting stuff. You couldn't just play this out of the box as a one-on-one battle.
So I have a question. I wonder if we can speculate. So in the past 2 editions, what they've done is you had your big release box.
Right.
We could call it a starter box, but it's not really
it's a launch box.
It's a launch box. And so you've got your launch box, and that would be followed up by 1 or 2 beginner boxes or starter boxes. Do you think that they're even going to bother with one of those if the new format is Spearhead?
I could see there being... You know what I could see? I could see there being one thing, and this is the only thing they do. They release a special edition of this that's online only, that has the Spearhead box and the two things combined, and that's it. I don't see them ever releasing a small version of this because you've created Spearhead. What's the point of trying to play AOS on a smaller scale when you now have a new way to play AOS that literally is just collecting a Spearhead box? I mean, most Spearhead boxes are $140. The Spearhead, I will say this about Spearhead, and I love that they did this. It has everything you need for 2 players in it fully. So if you buy a Spearhead box and your buddy and you each buy a Spearhead, you're good to go. You can play. And I think that's really smart on their part. It's just interesting that the focus of a launch box is not your full competitive game. It's your new... And again, it's new. It's cool. It's what you want your people to get into AOS with now and try out this new edition. It's great. It's just not what you've done before with AOS, so it's really interesting to see.
So how long did this... I mean, like, because this was our first game with Spearhead, our first game with, you're using the Skaven, I was using my Cruel Boys. I love my Cruel Boys, so...
Yeah, my Beast of Chaos are legends now, so sad tear for me. They will no longer be in this game.
So all of, like, basically, we were starting new, and I was having to relearn Cruel Boys. You were learning a new army. So how long did it take us? Like an hour and 45 with... Okay.
Maybe like an hour and 30.
I
would say we took some breaks a little bit, looked at stuff. I'll say this. I think you can play Spearhead in a lunch break.
I think so too. Yeah. I think once you get your rules down and once you know your Spearhead box, if you're going the route of just grabbing Spearhead boxes, I'm thinking you're gonna be able to knock this out in like 45 minutes to an hour. And
I really just it feels fast. It feels clean. It doesn't feel like it's gonna waste a bunch of your time either. Right. Here's what I'll say too. It felt like a full-on AOS game, which was good, but small and more controlled. And I like the battle tactics. Personally, for me as an Underworlds fan, it felt like Underworlds, where I had objective cards and things I was trying to score, but they were also like gambits in some ways if I didn't score them. I really, really like what they've done with Spearhead to get people into AOS. I think it was such a smart idea to build it because Combat Patrol... I mean, if you play 40k and you like Combat Patrol, that's great. I think it's an okay thing. I think this is basically, though, a more improved Combat Patrol sort of design. And this feels to me like it feels like AOS, which is good because there was never an easy way to get into AOS before. Because like Warcry, not at all like AOS. It's set in AOS, but it's not a scare. Underworld's not a way to get into big Age of Sigmar. You either played AOS at big point levels, or you didn't play it at all. Now you can play Spearhead.
Yep. So let's talk about, is this a complete game? We said that, like for right now, you're not going to have all the cards. So besides, like having to go online and grabbing the War Scroll cards, is this like something you could take to an event?
You could take Spearhead event, yeah. Like I'm running a Spearhead event at our local shop, Level Up Athens, so super excited for that. Yeah. And we're doing a campaign probably too as well for it. Slow Grow League, and these feel like you could take this to an event and it would do okay. I think it's great of them to be able to give you an option to go play full games of AOS. Again, they're Spearhead games. They're not the 2000 competitive games that you're used to. But I also think that's okay. Like, I think that's okay for us to talk about and to have.
One of the things that I've seen online, whenever you looked at when you look at the battle profile document that they released, when you look at the point values of the Spearhead boxes, some of them are close to 1,000 points.
Some of them are really high.
Some of them are really high. Some of them are lower. You're going to get some, like my Cruel Boys, I think, are 780.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are getting really close to 1,000 points. So you're not far off from having a 1,000 point army ready to go. So I think Spearhead, just for me, I think Spearhead is such an interesting thing because not only does it give you a taste of the real game, but it also gets you a little farther ahead in collecting than
Than it used to.
than they used to.
I mean, I bought 3 Vanguard Beast of Chaos boxes just to be able to play. No, I bought 2.
Two.
Bought 2
Just
and
two,
like
yeah.
2 of those, a bunch of other stuff. Bought Bellacore, and I had 2,000 points, but it wasn't like a great 2,000 points in the old edition. This feels better. Also, like the way they've restructured the entire army building, where now it's heroes that lead like battalions and things. I think they've made the game again cleaner and easier to pick up, which was one of the biggest problems AOS had. Was it was not an easy game to get into,
Right.
like by any stretch of the means, in terms of how to play it. All this feels better. It feels like something that I could really like. I myself will probably not still be a competitive AOS player, but I could probably play AOS at a pretty decent level. Whereas before, I don't think I could have. And I'm a competitive gamer. I love that stuff.
And I'm more your casual gamer. I have no interest in doing the competitive scene, but I love this just because it gives me that ability to play and not feel like I have to, break my budget.
Right.
I've got an army I like, and I might buy some Spearhead boxes now.
Yeah.
Because I can just try them and like save up a little money, go buy a Spearhead box, and I'm not out hundreds and hundreds of dollars trying to get a full army. I've got something that works, and we can play it on my downstairs table and not have to worry too much about it.
And I think that's a huge selling point for new players too, at that regard,
So that gets us to the very last bit. So, who is this set for? Does this give you value if you are a new player, if you're a seasoned player? What do you think?
I think there's a couple of things I want to talk about. If you've never played Age of Sigmar before, yes, this is absolutely worth your money. It is going to give you 2 different Spearhead options. It's going to give you the Spearhead stuff, which is where you're going to start. I know a lot of people are like, I don't care for Spearhead. I want to play a full game and all that. That's great, right? You have that option. But now we have an option to get new players into this game, which is a huge step up from what we had before.
And start them with Spearhead.
Right. That's the thing. Spearhead was made for these new players. So if you're a new player, never played AOS, I think this is a good value. This retails, I believe, at $279, right? You're getting your money's worth in the plastic and the books and all the stuff that you get in this. I mean, the plastic alone is probably more than $300.
Yeah.
So you're getting your value's worth there.
And like the core rule book by itself, I think it's 60.
Usually $60 or so.
The Spearhead set is like, what, 65 or 70, something like that?
It's going to, I don't know, because it's got the board and all that in there.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's just adding up all the pieces.
Yeah.
Just, if you're going to get into this new edition anyway, you've got tons of value in this box.
Yeah. I will say this: if you're a Skaven player or a Stormcast player, probably worth picking up, especially since some of the Stormcast stuff is getting removed from the lines because of their older ones. If you're going to buy this just for Spearhead and the core rules, and you don't care about the armies, you're going to sell the armies, I would still argue this might be worth your time, because if you can make your money's worth selling the armies back, you probably come about even or a little bit more ahead off that. Again, it's up to you. These literally come out, I think, the week after this drops. They're like trying to push it out quick. So if you don't want to wait, you're not. I don't think you're losing a whole lot. If you're a competitive player and you really want the General's Handbook cards, I think this is a great value as well for those. It's always weird with launch boxes, because if you don't play either army and you don't like either army, sometimes it's like, is it worth waiting? They're coming out fast with it, so it's probably okay to wait, but I mean, like, the box has value.
I think so. I mean, for me, I think if you're not interested in the armies, I mean, I agree. You could probably sell all the,
especially the
all
Skaven
the plastic
stuff. Everyone wants to do Skaven stuff.
And see, that's one thing. I would say, though, if you don't want to deal with that hassle, you still have the option of buying the core rule book and the Fire and Jade Spearhead book, and the set with all the stuff, and it gets you going with Spearhead. And the fact that that's coming out like a week after the launch of this box, I mean, that's a no-brainer for me.
Right.
It's catering to everybody. It's catering to the people who've been playing Age of Sigmar, for 3 previous editions. And if you're hoping to get into it, you've been looking at this on the shelf at the game store and wanted to know what it was all about. Maybe you've got a friend who wants to try it. Now's the time. Now is the perfect time to start.
I couldn't agree more. I think AOS has slowly. I mean, a lot of people might disagree with me. I tried to play AOS at the end of third. I thought it was clunky. It had too many rules. I thought it was a lot to do in one game. It was just too much. I was really struggling with it personally. And I am a competitive gamer. I didn't just play Underworlds. I played competitive 40K for a while. Like, I did, and I get that games can be complex.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a difference between complexity and me also just not having fun when I go, oh, I forgot this rule again for my army, which would have changed the entirety of this battle, which means this battle is almost invalid. I don't like that. I think that's irritating. There's too much stuff to remember. This doesn't feel that way.
Right.
Like you said, with the color coding, it's like, oh, let me look at my characters. Oh, there's a red one.
Yeah,
oh, there's
right
a fight
there.
phase. Oh, no, there's a fight phase ability. Oh, I gotta know what my fight phase is. Oh, we're in the fight phase. Let me double check to see what it does. Like, it just makes sense. And I really, really like that. Now on to the big question for us, and really for you, because again, I'm more of a gamer. Does this box make you want to, A, keep playing Spearhead, but also, B, does it interest you at all in playing bigger games?
Yes to both.
Okay.
I mean, I still want to do... I want to do mostly Spearhead just because I like the smaller format games. I like skirmish miniature games. If I'm going to play anything, I want to play something small. But if I can get more experience under my belt with Spearhead, I don't feel like it would be a stretch to be able to move up to 1,000 point or a 2,000 point game.
Right.
I think right now I've got something like 1,600 something points worth of Crow Boys models, and it's. I think all I got to do is just add one of those big boys, like Gobsprack or something like that, and then I would have enough. So I think this edition has not just given me what I want in the short term, I think it's given me what I need in the long term.
It's a good way of putting it. I think there's value in Spearhead. I know a lot of people are like, isn't going to last in terms of like how much fun it is. I don't know. I think it can. I mean, I think it's also a very swingy game. Like, I think you probably would have beat me if you had not double turned me last.
Yeah,
game. Like
we were really close in the end.
I think I won by a point.
Yeah.
No, I won by more than that. But it was like
it was a couple. But it came down to that last round, and like I had been up. And I was doing really well, and then I got a couple of bad rolls, and then I made a couple of bad decisions, and then it turned.
Right.
And but I never felt at any point that the game was unfair, that it was unbalanced in one person's favor, or one Spearhead army's favor. It just felt like we were having a good time rolling dice.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing about this is like I feel like. With Spearhead, at least in the one game, again, we played one game, so, opinions might change on this.
Sure.
I think that it felt very much like I was never 100% winning. Like, I never felt like I was like, I'm going to win this game entirely. Again,
whereas
we played...
in third edition, it was apparent by, like, round 1.
Yeah, but that didn't help that I also, like, brought my entire Beast of Chaos army off the board and just wiped half your army in one go. I was like, oh, do you want to keep playing? Ha ha!
Yeah, I was like, no.
Sorry, man.
But this, I mean, but I've played several, I've played games before, and this feels closer to what I wanted AOS to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we should probably wrap it up. The video is probably already going to be long, but
I want to finish on a couple of things I think that are important about this. I think, again, if you are interested in Spearhead, I think this is a great new thing that they've done with it. Spearhead's amazing. I will say that too. All the rules, as of right now, are free on WarhammerCommunity.com. They posted pretty much everything as free PDFs. As we speak right now, this week leading up to the actual release of the game, they're also releasing free army PDFs for everyone that basically are comprehensive of everything. So if you are interested in the game, you can look everything up and kind of get a feel for it. Then my last thing I want to talk about is for this game is I think that AOS is in such a great spot. If you've never played a miniature game, I almost would put this one pretty highly now. We always talk about new players getting into games. AOS used to be a game I did not recommend to people.
Yeah, I wouldn't have.
Yeah, I was always like, you should play Warcry. Warcry is really easy to get into. It's easy to understand. Or, they were like, I want to play 40k. And it's like, okay, you can play 40k. 40k, I feel like, is not that difficult. I feel like AOS at times was almost more complicated than 40k, which is insane for me.
In 3rd edition, yeah.
Yeah. I think that if you are a new person who wants to get into a miniature game, one, if you want to buy this box to get into miniature gaming, great purchase. Absolutely worth your money. But also, AOS is at a point, I think, now where new players are going to really gravitate towards this game. Spearhead makes everything a lot easier. People who want to try this hobby and love the fantasy aspect of the game, they've got these 2 new cool-looking armies, revamping the Skaven. The new Stormcast models look amazing. I mean, I'm not a Stormcast guy personally, really, but I really like a lot of these models. They look really cool. So if you're looking to get into a miniature game, I used to not recommend AOS, and now I'm going to probably recommend it a lot more than I used to, which is weird.
And I think the community is going to grow for this pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So if you have a local game store, or especially if you have a local Warhammer shop, we have one that's about 40 miles away, but they're already advertising Spearhead tournaments, and I think that if you're going to get in on this and not only play but learn how to play and grow in the hobby, now's a good time, because everybody, even the experts, are starting at a point where everybody else is having to learn too.
That's why the last point I want to bring up. This is a new edition of this game with a total revamp of the rules. Be careful when people tell you the game sucks. The game does not suck. It's different.
Yeah.
And I will admit, there are some things that I've seen where I've gone, I can understand why you're frustrated your army now plays this way. It's different, or it doesn't seem as good, or it's just strange. Guys, it's a new edition. We've got all new stuff happening. We don't know what everything's going to end up like. They've got chances to change things and everything. They did every army. They're going to make some mistakes in some cases, and they might need to change things, and that's okay. But don't listen to the naysayers on this one. I do genuinely think that especially if you want to get into AOS, you're picking a good time. This is not doom and gloom with this new edition. I think that's all positives in my ideas.
Yeah, and if you don't like the way an army works right now, next season there will be a new General's Handbook, and maybe things will change a little bit. But
and what's cool too is with Spearhead, this is this is the first one. There's supposed to be one for each realm. There's 8 different mortal realms, so we're gonna get multiple different versions of Spearhead, multiple different battle tactic decks, maybe new twists and things. So the opportunities for Spearhead, and this isn't the Spearhead launch box, and I don't want to constantly talk about just Spearhead, because I do think there's more to this game than that, but this is really what they're pushing for it, and Spearhead is just such a good way to get into this game now, and really the way I think you're going to play a lot at your locals with new players and getting people in, so, give it a shot, and, for anyone who's not tried AOS and is in the Athens area, We'll be doing launch day demos at Level Up Games for that. I'm sure if you're in Georgia, Level Up Games will be doing events and things for that as well. So, it's an exciting time for AOS. And, I walked away from AOS 3.0 not happy.
Right.
I was very cautious on this edition. After reading everything and looking at everything, This is a game that I'm going to play. And after being gone from it in 3rd edition, coming back at the tail end to kind of try it before 4th, this feels good, and this reminds me a lot of 2nd edition, which was my favorite edition of AOS, but more cleaned up, and that is just wonderful to see.
Well, leave a comment down below if you have any questions, comments, like and subscribe, all those things.
And
follow us on our socials.
Yep. And if you do want to pick up your copy, I believe they are selling them at levelupgamesatl.com. You can pick up copies of them before it. Again, we are posting this right before launch, so it will launch this Saturday for everybody. But if you are, interested, tell us, what do you think of the new edition of Age of Sigmar? Are you excited to get into Age of Sigmar? Is there a Spearhead you're super interested in trying out? A new army you want to try? Let us know, because I think, we talked about doing Path to Glory with 3rd edition in one of our podcast episodes. It kind of fell apart because it was just so difficult. But, this might be something where we do some Spearhead games maybe on our Patreon to show off for people and, do some different things with this. So it's a new edition. We're excited, and we hope you are excited too.
Thanks, everybody, and until next time.
Del, take care.
Bye.